What's going on, everyone? Good evening. I know one of the top questions that you guys may have is, did the Giants win today? Indeed, they did. 27-22. They beat the Green Bay Packers, the Giants, the New York Giants. Could you believe it with the quarterback that we have, who's not really good, Daniel Jones? It's 4-1. The New York Giants are 4-1. The Cowboys are playing right now. I want them to lose, but at the same time, I want to see is Cooper Rush really going to do something. But anyway, of course, that's not what the video is about, but I just had to get the sports highlights, the sports news, the sports information out of the way very quickly. And we're going to get into some of these government bills. I think it's important. I know a lot of you guys are watching football, just enjoying the win off my Giants. The Cowboys on. It's kind of weird because I want them to lose, but at the same time, if they win, I want to see if Jerry Jones is going to allow Cooper Rush to still run the offense, even though Dak Prescott is healthy. Just a question. I will keep the same chemistry. I wouldn't put Dak back in. Anyway, with that being said, family, we're going to get right into these government bills that I know a lot of people probably haven't really been tracking and, really watching these bills that have been coming out. Some of them you want to see are familiar. You want to do the top 10 government bills, which may significantly change your life, believe it or not. This is something I think that is very important. First, we have the Inflation Reduction Act, which we are familiar with. Then we have making continual appropriations for fiscal year 2023 and for all other purposes. This is basically a bill that's only in operation for a year, and it's about the budget. Now, this is funny. This has been going on for quite some time. This is kind of like one of those fun bills. Now, the politicians who got, essentially involved with this, like Rubio or Marco Rubio, rather, has been trying to push this. It has already passed the Senate, and most likely it should pass the House, and it should become law. This is basically having America to follow the world, meaning we're not going to have no daylight savings time, okay? If you guys are not familiar with this bill, it's called the Sunshine Protection Act. I don't know why they call it like we're protecting the sun, but it says this bill makes daylight saving time the new permanent standard time, effective November 5th, 2023. So if this gets passed before then that is when it's going to occur, where we no longer change our times. Whatever the time is, it will stay that time. Thank God. I remember back in the day when everything was manual and you had to roll back the clock, go an hour ahead, so on and so forth. It says states with areas exempt from daylight saving time may choose the standard time for those areas. That's kind of like giving the states the power to continue daylight saving time, or, rewinding time back an hour, or putting time ahead an hour. It really doesn't make any sense. I think we should keep time primarily the same. But anyway, family, that is the Sunshine Protection Act. We're going over the top 10 bills here. Some of them we're going to go in, vivid detail and more detail than others that I think that may be pertinent to your personal life. Okay. Now, I know a lot of you, regardless if you are an intaker of paraphernalia of such like marijuana, or you are a business investor who wants to get involved in the business of marijuana, then this bill may mean something to you. And this was introduced, who the sponsor is Gerald Nader, okay, or Republican Nader as most people know him. And it's already passed the House, okay? Now, it's going to get really tricky when it gets to the Senate, but don't forget that the government is primarily Democratic ran. That's right. The government is primarily democratically ran, meaning that the Democrats have the majority in the House and the Senate. And of course, we have a Democratic president. So I don't see why this bill will get filibustered or vetoed in any sense. I think that it should get passed. But once again, this is decriminalizing marijuana in the United States of America. So it no longer can be a federal crime. This is one step closer to making marijuana legalized medicinally and possibly recreational. The reason why I say possibly recreational, we know that we are in now the double digits of states who have passed marijuana to be legal in a state level, whether it be for medicinal use and also recreational use. But the federal government has kind of been toying with passing marijuana on a federal level for medicinal use, but not for recreational. That's a slippery slope. And the reason why I say that, family, is because take, for instance, when we really discovered fermented grapes and we understood that turned into wine. And one of the properties of wine is alcohol, etc. And then we figured out that alcohol was a disinfectant. Okay, it was an antiseptic. It could kill germs, bacteria, and fungus, right? So we're drinking the same things that we can clean wounds with, but nonetheless. And we understand that the different properties of marijuana have some health benefits that has been proven, okay, to lessen pain, to help people with sleep apnea and insomnia, like all of these medical benefits that marijuana has. So we know that it's very, very possible that it will get passed on a very medicinal level, but when it comes to recreational, it's kind of like prohibition for alcohol. Like, yeah, first we're going to use it in the medical field and we're going to see the effects. And okay, people also like drinking it. Can we figure out how to way to tax it? Can we figure out a way to control it? Can we figure out a way where we start an injury for the government in order to make more money? That's the question, right? And as we get more into this bill, what you're going to find out is they're slowly building an infrastructure to tax marijuana the same way they did with alcohol. Now, me personally, I look at it as a business opportunity, especially if you're in that particular space or not. Okay. So here's the bill. Let me get down here. I'm not going to read all of this, but we'll go over some of it. We'll go over some of it, family. Here we go. I'll blow it up just a little bit more. It says this bill decriminalizes marijuana. Specifically, it removes marijuana from the list of scheduled substances under the Controlled Substance Act and eliminates criminal penalties for an individual who manufactures, distributes, or possess marijuana. It also states the bill also makes other changes, including the following: replaces statutory references to marijuana and a different spelling of marijuana with cannabis. Requires the bill, listen to this, family, this is when it kind of gets iffy to me, the trick language and, the catch-all phrase. Requires the Bureau of Labor Statistics to regularly publish demographic data on cannabis businesses, owners, and employees. Yeah. The American in me would tell me the reason why they want to track demographics, meaning race, ethnic, things of that nature, is to ensure that Black people, maybe Hispanics and Asians, have an opportunity to open up a business for marijuana and not just have white people to take control of 90+% of the business. Then yeah, that's the American in me, which really doesn't pertain to any race. But then there's the Black man in me, the good old U.S. freedman, the good old foundation of Black American. The Black American in me states that this is another way of redlining, gentrification, and suppression of potential Black businesses. I mean, even to this day, we still have the government suppressing student loans, government loans, state loans, independent loans, private loans to Black Americans, right? We can get into a video with that as well, but you guys exactly know what I'm talking about. It's still hard for us, if you guys seen many of news stories, how it's hard for us to obtain real estate. Now, in some areas, when we kind of go outside the realm of Black American buying property, that's when we run into the most trouble. If you know that, I know a lot of real estate owners, they buy a lot of properties in Black neighborhoods and Black cities. They never run into a problem. But when they started getting into those prestigious neighborhoods, so to speak, those champagne wine drinking neighborhoods, so to speak, they start to run into roadblocks. They start to run into discrimination. They start to run into racial bias. They start to run into racism. So with that one, I kind of look at it with a side eye like, demographics, huh? Establish a trust fund to support various programs and services for individuals and businesses and communities impacted by the war on drugs. What? So now, wow, that's a mouthful. Because medically and supposedly, no one can become addicted to marijuana on a chemical level, meaning that you become chemical dependent on marijuana, supposedly, because there's no addictive properties. Now, and the reason why they come to that conclusion, because I know a lot of you like, man, shoot, my cousin, my brother, my uncle, my sister, my mother, whoever are addicted. But when they have quote unquote withdrawals, they're saying they're not having night sweats and throwing up, increased levels of anxiety and depression. They haven't seen those things when people are no longer using marijuana. But with alcohol, opioids, heroin, crack cocaine, angel dust, mushrooms, acid, loopies, ecstasy, all the drugs. They've seen these chemical dependency where they can't function normally without it. But with marijuana, I haven't seen that. But the funny part about this is establish a trust fund to support various programs and services for individual and businesses and communities impacted by the war on drugs. Now, I'm not stating that other communities have not been impacted by the war on drugs, but family, we all know the community that has been mostly egregious and impacted by the war on drugs, and that is the Black American community. But they won't say it. Anytime they don't name you by name, meaning Black Americans, okay, hashtag US Freeman, hashtag FBA, no, then you know this can go to every community. They're like, oh, we got some places in the hills of Alabama who's addicted to heroin, okay? Or as my uncle would say, heroin, like I said before. But nonetheless, but we've been affected, and it's not by our own actions. It's by the actions of the 3- and 4-letter alphabet boys that introduced and started a drug dealing ring within the Black communities. Look at that show, Snowfall. That's based upon true events. So things of that nature, that we didn't do this by ourselves. Now, unfortunately, we still have some people in the community that's helping destroy the community, but we did not start. We did not initiate. We didn't even set up the infrastructure. See, it's kind of like somebody say, hey, sell this is viable. You can feed your family. Sell this is viable. You can feed your family. And I say, oh, well, I don't know where to sell it at. I don't know where to get more of it at. I don't know. Oh, no, don't worry. We control the infrastructure. We're the plug. We're the manufacturers, the distributors. We can get you how much you need. Just pump this in your community and you'll be rich. And that is the fall of the Black community. See, you never really hear about any debauchery in the Black community prior to the 70s. Prior to the 70s, you never really hear about any of the debauchery. That's when we had families and we had communities and businesses. But soon as the 70s, mid 70s, late 70s, when crack cocaine and cocaine was introduced, that's when you see the fall of our communities. Okay. It also states here, and here's the part I was talking about before, family, imposes an excise tax on cannabis products produced or imported into the United States, and an occupational tax on cannabis production facilities and export warehouses. So the federal government has found out a way to make money off of marijuana. Now, anytime that you get incarcerated, like Joe Biden released 6,500 people on simple charges of marijuana, right? Meaning that they just had possession, enough for them to smoke, whatever. Okay, cool. anytime you've done a number amount of jail years because of a federal and or state crime at the time, and then that same thing that they deem illegal, they are now the drug dealers themselves because they're getting paid all the transactions of people starting businesses and making transactions. Say, but how do you don't get that time back? Isn't that a big smack in the face? All these people who went to jail for marijuana, and now the government is now trying to construct a business and make money off it. It's kind of like the government, and I've been saying this for a very long time, and again, I'm not anti-government, how the government is similar to the mafia. They say, yeah, you can sell that in the neighborhood, but there's a tax. You see, we'll let you operate that because maybe they don't deal in those products, but they will allow you because they don't have to do any work, but they want at least 25, 30% of the business. This is how the government operates, family. Okay? So they figured out a way how to tax marijuana. And then it states, make small businesses administration loans and services available to entities that are cannabis-related legitimate businesses or service provider. Is this not the mafia? You're trying to start an industry, but you don't have the money to really, increase your inventory and get people to sell it for you. The government said, we're going to make the SBA available for you guys to get loans in order to start your marijuana investment businesses, your marijuana distribution businesses. Yeah, we're going to give you the money. You get the building, you get the products, you get all the things that are attached to the business. So you're going to pay us back the loan money, and you're going to give us tax money on top of that. They doubling down. This is how the American government are becoming the biggest drug dealers in the world. Quote me if I'm wrong. If I'm saying something wrong, family, let me know. Let me know. We got Jermaine Anderson in the house, B1 family. That's right, brother. Please hit the like button. Jermaine Anderson's on the job. I didn't pay you last month, did I, Jermaine? Jermaine Anderson's been with me for a very long time. So every now and again, I know I haven't broke him off. I got to break him off again. He does it freely. I love it. Thank you, brother. I do appreciate it. Directs the Government Accountability Office to study the societal impact of state legalization of recreational cannabis. See, this is when it kind of gets funny, family. They're talking about, listen to this, directs the Government Accountability Office to study the social impact of state legalization of recreational cannabis. Let me tell you something. First and foremost, they probably already have enough information that can tell them the potential of people who probably don't smoke marijuana, but who probably will start because they're curious, they're interested, or they didn't do it because it was illegal. There's a lot of Americans who simply don't do things because they're illegal. Now, when people demonize certain things, right? I don't even demonize people who do, heroin and acid and ecstasy. I don't demonize them people because here's the thing. Prior to prohibition and going through that time and on that time, we understand that alcohol was illegal. Alcohol was illegal, but politicians and powerful businessmen and people who can get their hands on it were drinking alcohol, and it was illegal, right? And then you had part of Americans, I would like to believe, who didn't deal with that mess. They like, oh, I'm not doing no drugs, because that's what it was at the time. Until this day, alcohol is still a drug. It really, it decreases your response time. It makes you impaired. You slurred speech. You have all these things. I mean, I have slurred speech, but I'm black, so it's kind of a getaway card, a get out of jail free card. But nonetheless, the points I'm making is that now that it's legalized, majority of people have a drink every now and again. Whether it be wine, a mixed drink, a cocktail, straight up, neat, ice, no ice, on the rocks, off the rocks, doesn't matter, right? Everybody for the most part, has accepted alcohol as a social, a sort of encounter, an interaction. That's how they look at it. And now, during that time, even before Europeans came over here and colonized this country, stole it, killed people, etc., put people in slavery, we know, had to run through that. That they was smoking marijuana. The Native Americans, they were smoking hemp. And now that they realize that, I guess a lot of Americans smoke marijuana and they don't go out and commit crimes, they're like, hey, maybe we can make some money off of it. Okay? But I'm not going to beat the drum on the marijuana beat too long. But that's definitely an opportunity for you guys to start a business, right? If that's your sort of thing. Always look out for business opportunity. Now, this is very interesting. The Social Security Fairness Act. Let's get into that. Now, this was introduced by Rodney Davis, okay, who's a Republican. It's been introduced. It hasn't went through the House or the Senate. Now, this is what I hate. Of course, we have Democrats in the office. And again, I'm apolitical. I got to say that every time because people leave me comments and they're like, oh, you just a Republican. Or you just a beat up Democrat. I'm like, okay. It's funny at best. Let's get into this bill, family. It states here that this bill repeals provision of reduced Social Security benefits for individuals who receive other benefits such as a pension from a state or local government. This bill eliminates the government pension offset, which in various instances reduces Social Security benefits for spouses, widows, and widowers who are also receive government pensions of their own. Okay, here we go again. The bill also eliminates the windfall elimination provision, which in some instances reduces Social Security benefits for individuals who also receive a pension or disability benefit from an employer that did not withhold Social Security taxes. Wait a minute. Okay. You're probably asking yourself this question. This bill repeals provision that reduces Social Security benefits for individuals who receive other benefits such as a pension from a state or local government. My question to you guys is, do you agree with that? Do you believe that this should be repealed? Now, looking from a financial standpoint, this bill should be repealed because this bill reduces the amount of Social Security benefits. That means that you guys are going out there in your corporate and state and private business jobs, and whether you like your job or not, you're putting in the work, you hardly get time off. Did you know that your benefits are reduced if you are receiving any other benefits or pension from another job, that you won't get all of your Social Security that you actually invested in, but all the people before you have received that money? They're like, well, Ross, you have a 401k. This 401k pays you out $2,500 a month, which is not a lot of money at all. It's not a lot of money at all. Okay, that's going to pay most people mortgages and a bag of groceries. And then they're like, well, your Social Security would have paid you $1,500 a month, but because you're receiving $2,500 a month, we're going to just give you $800 a month. We're just going to give you $700 a month. Well, wait a minute. But I invest in Social Security for the past 20 to 30 years. I won't get my just due. I can't get the same amount of money that those before me have received. No. And again, this is one of the bills that I agree with. This bill repeals provisions that reduce Social Security benefits for individuals who receive other benefits such as a pension you worked your ass off for, your IRAs, your 401ks, your 403bs, etc., from state or local governments. Don't you guys want to get your just pay, all that money they take out for Social Security? Yeah, I know you do. I'm just gonna answer that question for you. And see, that's why I'm a policy. When it comes to how I vote, if I vote, I go by policies. What policies are going to benefit me? What policies are going to benefit the Black family? Because first you have to think about, and this is just my conjecture, you have to think about yourself, your family, how you vote. Then you have to think about your community. These are the things we should really be keeping our eyes on, okay? Now, another one that's very popular is the assault weapons ban. Let's get into that. Now, this bill was introduced by David N. Cicilline, which seems to be a Democrat of Rhode Island. Of course, if I'm noticing, all the Democratic bills have been passed through the House. Okay. Let's get down here to the bill, family. It states here, this bill makes it a crime to knowingly import, sell, manufacture, transfer, or possess a semi-automatic assault weapon or large capacity ammunition feeding device. Now, the thing about this, they're basically saying you have a semi-automatic like an AR-15, then you have one of those bunt stocks devices that makes it fully automatic. They know that these things can be altered in many different ways because they're just metal and plastic. They can make a semi-automatic automatic. Now, the key thing about this is you're going to start hearing terminologies like SAW, meaning semi-automatic assault weapons, okay? Then it says the prohibition does not apply to a firearm that is manually operated by a bolt, like a rifle, okay? Pump level or slide action, like a handgun, except for certain shotguns, permanently inoperable and antique or capable of firing rimfire ammunition, or a rifle or shotgun specifically identified by make and model. The bill also exempts from the prohibition the following with respect to a SAW or LCAFD: the importation, the sale, the manufacturer, transfer, or possession related to certain law enforcement efforts or authorized tests or experiments, importation, sale, transfer, possessions related to securing nuclear materials, and possession by a retired law enforcement officer, okay? These people are exempt. So basically, you know what's funny about this? A retired police officer can have an AR-15, but a military member can't. What? Listen, family, when you look at your state, you look at your city, sometimes cities are too small to have a SWAT team. And those are the really people who really carry the ARs. You will have regular police officers every now and again carry an AR, like in California, they passed some law for regular policemen to be trained and carry ARs because that's what some of the people on the street had. But most states, your city cops don't have AR-15s. They have a shotgun. Some of them do have ARs. I'm not saying none of them do, but not all of them. But the entire military has machine guns. And over like 85% of military members, when it comes to the Navy, the Army, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force, actually train with M4s and M16s. Now, M16s, of course, are slowly becoming obsolete and decommissioned, but M4s are definitely in action. Maybe I missed something, but I didn't see anything about military being exempted from this law. Isn't that baffling that veterans and military members who operate semi-automatic weapons all the time, that actually have to qualify them, that only like 3% of law enforcement are part of the SWAT team, and maybe only 5% of them actually have AR-15s on their personal or in their squad car? That doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, I digress. Let me move on. It also states that this bill also allows a state or local government to use Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program funds to compensate individuals who surrender a SAW or LCAFD under a buyback program. So the government is going to what? The government is going to buy back your semi-auto weapon. I mean, you know what? At this time, I have to shut my mouth on social media. I'll just say that according to this law, I may or may not have to turn in some guns. Okay? I may or may not have to turn in some guns. But again, the only thing that's trifling about this act is that, you know, veterans won't be able to have semi-automatic weapons. All right, let's move on, family. Let's go over mental health matters really quickly, and then we'll get into the other ones as well. We're almost done here with number 8 out of 10. We're just going over the legislation, some things that you might want to keep your eye on here. This is by a Democrat, Mark DeSaulnier, I believe. Of course, as we notice, all the Democratic bills have passed the House and now moving to the Senate, but the Republican bills are still just introduced. And this is the thing about being apolitical. A lot of even the Social Security Act that a Republican introduced to the House has not been passed yet. I like that bill as well. I like the the assault ban. See, here's why I contradict myself. Because I may or may not have semi-automatic weapons, but at the same time, with the recent tragedies, we have to do something. And then you get people who are mostly conservative and Republican based stating that we all should have guns. Because when things pop off, we can neutralize the threat. Then you have people on the right like, no, our children are dying, our family members are dying. Let's just put a restriction. Let's limit what type of weapons that citizens can buy. I hate to say it, family, I agree with both. And it really doesn't matter if you pro-gun or you anti-gun. Guns are in America and they're here to stay because we base all that legislation off the Constitution. So it really doesn't matter. Okay? Let's get into it. This is the Mental Health Matters Act. It states here that this bill requires certain federal actions to increase access to mental and behavioral health care. Among other provisions, the bill creates various grants to increase the number of school-based mental health service providers, establish requirements for institutions of higher education concerning students with disabilities, prohibits arbitration and discretionary clause in employer-sponsored benefit plans under the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 19. Listen, this is a do-nothing act. I'm gonna pass it because really, I really thought they were going to increase funding for state and local law enforcement, so they have law enforcement that shows up without guns, that they are trained in mental health issues. But this bill isn't that. So we're just going to move on. This is a do-nothing bill. This is a time-wasting bill. We're almost done here, family. Excuse me. We're almost done here. We're going to go over the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This may be important to you guys as well. This bill, again, was introduced by Peter DeFazio, who's a Democrat of Oregon. And it became law already, by the way. So this legislation, this bill has already been passed into law. Let me let you look at it again. This is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, okay? Let's just read a little bit about it here. It says, among other provisions, the bill provides new funding for infrastructure projects, including for roads, bridges, and major projects, passenger and freight rail, highway and pedestrian safety, public transit, broadband, ports, and waterways. So what's important about this, especially for people who travel a lot, my wife, she never took a train ride. We're thinking about taking a train ride, but I just saw in the news today that a train from Pontiac, Michigan to Chicago was delayed. It was only a 5.5 hour train ride, but the train took 19 hours to get there because it had engine stalls and none of the bathrooms or water, none of the, functions on a train worked. It had no electricity. So that's something to look at when we look at some of these legislation about increasing funding for these things so we can improve it. Because when I go overseas, right, whether it be Europe, Asia, and Asia has some of the fastest, safest trains in the world. They ride trains like we use Uber. Okay, they ride trains like we use Uber. When I was in Korea, going from Seoul down to Busan, where the beach is, you catch the bullet train all the time. They call it the bullet train because it goes like 200 something miles per hour or kilometers, but it is going over 180 miles per hour. And they do 100,000, if not millions of these rides throughout the year. So it's kind of like, why can't we get on their level when we're one of the first countries to have an interconnected railway? With a country so vast as we are. With a country so vast as we are, I think the only other people who possibly have some form of a railway before us was China. Okay? And then we look at, of course, roads and bridges. I know a lot of you guys, I'm from Washington, D.C., and believe me, the roads always need repair because there's huge potholes. They shouldn't even call them potholes. They should call them sinkholes. Okay? Now, the other one that's important to everyone, doesn't matter if you're in media, entertainment, you want to live stream, you want a video chat, everybody wants faster speed for the internet. And there's some neighborhoods who still operating off of DSL. Okay, not dial-up, but DSL. Some people are still operating off of that. Some people just have regular cable and Ethernet cords ran to the house. And then you have some neighborhoods who have fiber optics running through the street, but they have Ethernet cords running to their home. And it's probably only like a Cat 5 cable. Okay. So you have all these different cables, Cat 4, Cat 5. The most recent cable that came out is Cat 8, but the infrastructure of broadband is just not there yet. So this is important. I had an AT&T technician come out the other day. I'm only getting a gig of speed. And I said, I'm going to buy me a switch and drop ports because I'm dealing with Wi-Fi and I'm having all these interconnectivity and disconnectivity with my internet when I'm live and I'm doing these things. So I'm having somebody come out and drop Ethernet ports. And I bought a 2.5E gigabyte switch, hoping that AT&T increases our neighborhood speeds up to at least 2, possibly 5, because the AT&T technician showed me his smart app where his home is getting 5 gigs. That's download speed, and I think around 3,500 and upload speed, okay? And I have fiber actually ran to my home. I have a Google Mesh, and it's still, you see the issues I have. It's like the Flintstones are running my internet. They're going to upgrade airports, water infrastructure. I wonder who water infrastructure they're going to upgrade first. Will it be Flint? Will it be Jackson, Mississippi? I'm just asking questions here. Power and grid reliability and resiliency. Now, 2 years ago, when I first moved to Texas, we had a winter storm. And we went without power for around 3 to 4 days. Okay, 3 to 4 days we did not have power because Texas did not weatherize their energy grid, their power grid. They did not weatherize it. But I believe the Governor Abbott last year passed some sort of bill where they have to weatherize it now. But I wonder if this legislation will provide funding for them to help out each state, or will they just help out Democratic states? See, I hate this war, red and blue, Democrats, Republicans, because literally it depends on what state you are, which you will be affected from, okay? Kane says here, there was a water issue in Baltimore City not too long ago. No, that water issue is still there, brother. If you look at one of my latest videos within the last week or two, I talked about the top 12 cities that had water issues, and Baltimore, DC, okay, were two of the ones that was on there, okay? Clean school buses and ferries, okay? Resiliency, including funding for coastal resiliency, ecosystem restoration, and weatherization. Electric vehicle charging. There it is. Addressing legacy pollution by cleaning up brownfield and Superfund sites and reclaiming abandoned mines and Western water infrastructure. What's important about the electric vehicle charging, didn't I just talk about this the other day? What I was stating, that the infrastructure is not there, that we have to get enough people on the road driving electric vehicles in order for them to build the infrastructure. This is one of the things that are totally backwards in this, in this country, where we allow Americans to go off on a limb and be adventurous, which I'm not that adventurous when it comes to, buying something on that magnitude, and there's no infrastructure to support it. Okay. We just call that good old common sense. So now that there's enough people who are buying electric vehicles, guess what? The government has allocated funds to build the infrastructure. Now, a lot of you out there bought Teslas, right? A lot of you out there bought Teslas, and then people bought BMWs and Lexus and all these other vehicles that are electric, the Ford Lightning, the R1T Rivian, all these different electric vehicles, but they all have different charging adapters. So now that the government has its hand in it, I wonder if some of these electric vehicle charging stations are going to be either government supported, government funded, and of course the government is going to get paid off of taxes. You know how it goes, family. The DMV in general can be in an absolute mess, as much as I hate to say it. Absolutely. Hopefully we start building databases, whether it be SQL, Raspberry, Python, whatever software and coding language that they use to support this. But a lot of these things we can absolutely do online. We can absolutely do online. And they know if the ideas I have, there's always a hacker, there's always someone who's going to figure out a way to beat the system. They should already know that. But think about it like this, family. Why do I have to go into the DMV? If you say you can actually handle this online, if you have a fingerprint reader, where we actually log your fingerprints inside the system, and then you essentially renew your driver's licenses and all the things that you will have to go to DMV for. And then again, I know a lot of you like, nah, they ain't gonna get my fingerprints. Because y'all know y'all be doing some illegal activity where you're gonna leave your fingerprints everywhere and not wear gloves. Have we learned anything from CSI? Wear gloves, cover all your hair follicles, shave your body, and use bleach to cover your tracks. That's all CSI did. They told people how to commit crimes. Wear gloves, and don't just wear one pair, double up on gloves in case the first one breaks. Shave all of your hair or wear clothes that encapsulate your hair, right? And if you don't have bleach, burn the place up. I'm sorry. Oh, man. But this is what CSI has taught us, unfortunately, okay? So, yeah, there's a way to get around the DMV. Sometimes we have to even take days off to go to the DMV. I think we have one more bill here, family, we want to cover. Ethan's Law. Who knows what the hell this is, right? This was introduced by Rosa DeLauro, a Democrat, last year. It's still introduced. It has not passed the House. It's with the House right now. Let's get into the details of this bill here. It says, Ethan Law, this bill establishes a framework to regulate the storage of firearms on residential premises as the federal, state, and tribal laws. Now, this is interesting. So they're going to ban semi-automatic weapons, and then they're going to tell you how to store the weapon. Am I against this? That's probably your question because the way I'm wording it. I'm not against the way you store your firearm. You should store your firearm if you had kids inside of your home, or you had the potential of having kids inside of your home, because you're going to be liable if they get control of that firearm and hurt themselves. So that's my thing, though. But if you don't have kids over your house, right, and only people that come over your house, if anybody, are adults, then I don't think this legislation should apply to you. But they gotta make it for everybody, because they know how some people are going to weasel them ways out of the law, find a gray area, find some loophole or something like that. So they kind of make it all inclusive. But that's kind of my thoughts on it. It says here, this bill established a framework to regulate the storage of firearms within your home. It goes on to say, at the federal level, the bill established statutory requirements for firearms on residential premises to be safely stored if a minor is likely to gain access without permission, or if a resident is ineligible to possess a firearm. I don't see nothing that really eliminates straw man purchases, but anyway, or at least doubling down and closing the loophole on straw man purchases. Okay, this is the same way how the guy that supplied, what's the guy's name? The young guy who supposedly was a medic, who was not a medic, and shot, 3 or 4 guys in the street during a Black Lives Matter march. I forgot the young guy's name. But anyway, who they had all this evidence, one, that he was part of the white supremacy gang. He was part of a white supremacy gang. Then 2, actually video recorded himself stating how he wanted to shoot people with his AR-15, those people who were looting. Now, here's my thing, family. If you're just looting and selling things out of store, but no one's getting harmed, except for people's bank account, I don't think that requires for someone to take your damn life. Now, some of these people were probably stealing to feed their kids, meaning they were stealing high luxury, expensive things to resell it, to get money, to feed their kids. And on the other hand, we understand that some people were just doing illegal activity with it regardless. But I still don't think that's just cause for someone to take your life. Kyle Rittenhouse, that's his name. Kyle Rittenhouse, recording himself stating he wanted to shoot people with his AR-15. And the AR-15, which he stated was his, wasn't even purchased by him because he was too young to purchase one, which he had a straw man purchase that someone supplied him with the weapon. Both of those 2 guys got off scot-free. No charges. None. Absolutely. Jerome Jones states that he has a CDL driver. I still have to go in to give them a copy of my medical card. Can't fax it in. They want their $5. Exactly. Because not even if you faxed it in, right? If you emailed it in, you did a copy, you put your face on it, you gave them a drop of blood and you emailed it in, they still want that $5. And here's the thing, family, they can still charge you $5 online. So I don't know why they're even wasting your time. Okay, let me move on. Now, this is pertaining to minors and how they can possibly gain access to firearms. It states here that an individual who violates the requirements is subject to criminal penalties. A firearm stored in violation of the requirements is subject to seizure and forfeiture. That just states they're going to take your guns. Are they going to forbid you to buy more firearms? Because my question is, they take your weapons, but are they going to stop you from buying future weapons? And here's the one that's important to me, or it's not important to me at all. My bad. Intriguing. At the state and tribal levels, the bill requires the Department of Justice to award grants to implement functionality identical requirements for the safety storage of firearms. First part, let's break down. Tribal levels. aren't reservations sovereign land, meaning that the U.S. government, state governments with those reservations reside in, don't have any authority on? Or is that part of one of the many treaties that the tribal nations and the federal government has made, other than all the reparations that these 500 federal recognized tribes receive? Other than that, but I don't understand how they have jurisdiction on tribal land. But here's another thing to look at. The bill requires the Department of Justice, okay, DOJ, to award grants to implement functional identical requirements for the safe storage of firearms. Now, the only way that I think that the federal government will assist the states, meaning that they will give them a couple of $1 million in order for them to lower the prices within their state for storage of people's personal weapons at their home, at their condos, apartments, etc. Like me, for all my weapons, they're in a gun safe because I have a young child here. I don't want him to get access to them. So, of course, family, these are the laws that people are now keeping a close eye on. And I'm just going to shrink this page just a little bit so you guys can see. These are the most viewed bills that people are actually looking at. And I just kind of gave you the top 10. I gave you the top 10 here. Some things we kind of went over in detail. Other ones we kind of just glanced over. Like we're familiar with the Inflation Reduction Act. They're trying to reduce the amount of inflation. Now, I'm going to go back to the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023. Now, I do want to point out that that video I did about the 12 cities that are majority Black that are having the water crisis right now, I don't see how the federal government have yet to sign an executive order to give emergency funds, because those cities, see, this is what you haven't heard mass media state yet. These cities are in a state of emergency. You do not have clean drinking water, right? It's coming out like sludge, it's coming out like all sorts of murky and contaminated water, and they have yet to deem that a state of a state of emergency where they can allocate funds very quickly in order for them to replace or to improve their water infrastructures, their water cleaning facilities. But again, I must point out, we've given billions of dollars and billions of dollars of equipment to Ukraine. And some of you may say, well, they're at war, they're in more dire need. Family, I understand that. But I can tell you this. If you had $100 and you had to feed your family, and there was a family across the street and they were starving as well, the only question I have for you is, who would you look out for first? Some of you like, oh, I can look out for both. I'll figure out how to make it work. I'll go here. I'll get canned food. Yeah. I know all of that. I got it. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to look out for your family first. So before the government allocated any money to any of these other countries, those water facility plants, those water cleaning facilities should have been improved, should have been renovated and or replaced. It's amazing how they can do anything with your tax money that you can't do yourself. I want you to think about that, because we all pay federal tax dollars in order for this country to be taken care of. And water is a very intricate part of anyone's infrastructure. This bill here, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023, was introduced by Democrat Adam Smith. This occurred in May of this year. It has already passed the House. It says here that the bill, excuse me, family, let me blow this up a little bit, authorizes the procurement of various items, including destroyers and aircrafts, modifies inventory requirements for various Air Force programs, authorized DoD to furnish electric vehicle charging stations at a commissary store and military exchanges. There we see it again. The government is now in on the electric vehicle charging stations. It also states here, requires DoD to carry out a pilot program to facilitate the transition of certain non-tactical vehicles to electric vehicles. Requires DoD to provide subject appropriation support for research and development of innovative industrial manufacturing processes. Requires the Army and the Navy to jointly carry out a pilot program to evaluate the feasibility of using data recorders to monitor the operation of military tactical vehicles. Oh, wow. They're going to start putting recorders in tactical vehicles to see what soldiers and naval men are saying. Prescribes in strength for the branches of the armed forces. Requires the branches of the armed forces to notify Congress before taking certain actions regarding reserve units, such as deactivations or reassignment of such a unit. Now, blah, 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 blah. You got some things about TRICARE in there. It's all sorts of things in this defense bill. But the first things they put on the list, it's kind of like if you guys were to look at nutritional facts. If you were to look at nutritional facts, and you know when you read the ingredients that the first ingredient that they list is majority of that product, you got like, oh, it's sugar, so it's majority sugar. Then they have some other things in that product. That's how they write bills. The most important thing in this bill, the defense, this Department of Defense bill, is that they're going to help the military to build infrastructure for electric charging stations and to convert some of the vehicles and non-tactical vehicles to be electric. So they have it in the defense budget. And see, America had their hands in all of this. And that's why I state, in my opinion, that America is one of the largest drug dealers of them all. It doesn't matter who's in charge of the presidency, whether it be a Republican or a Democrat. They are the biggest drug dealers because they had their hands in everything. Again, the American government is similar to the mafia. You can't do nothing in this country. You can't do nothing in Newark. You can't do nothing in the States. You can't do nothing in New York without our say-so, without our blessing. Because whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you still a made man. And I guess the president is the godfather. But family, they have all sorts of things in this defense bill. Require the Department of Homeland Security to designate a laboratory as the Chemical Security Analysis Center. Requires the Department of the Treasury to take actions to support international initiatives to provide debt restructuring and relief to developing countries. This is in the defense bill. Prohibits federal regulators from taking certain adverse actions against a depository institution solely for providing financial services to a cannabis-related business operating pursuant to state or local law. I know you want to see it. I'm going to show it. You think I'm bull jiving. Listen to this. This is crazy. Right here. Look at this one right here, family. It says certain adverse acts against a depository institution solely for providing financial services to a cannabis-related business operating pursuant to state or local law. Prohibits federal regulators from taking certain adverse actions, meaning that the government is now protecting this, the building and creation of the marijuana-cannabis infrastructure that they funding it for. If you guys just tuned in, if you rewind the tape here, we went over another piece of legislation that I'll show you the title of, that the government is going to provide money for small businesses to take out loans in order to build their marijuana empire. No, I'm being serious. You can actually take out a loan, start a weed dispensary. The federal government is going to tax you like 30% or something crazy like that. And they become the biggest drug dealers in the world. Then they double down on it in this defense bill, stating that they're going to ensure in the defense bill, okay, they're going to prohibit federal regulators, okay, lawmakers, whatever, from taking adverse action against a depository institution solely for providing financial services. You know why? The government said, we're not going to incarcerate ourselves. Why would they say that? A depository institution solely for providing financial services, because in the marijuana bill, they're going to give money to the Small Business Administration for you to fill your marijuana dispensaries. And now I'm going to go back for you guys just tuning in. We're going to quickly go over the marijuana one once again, and all the protections and the money that's involved with that one. Okay, this one is called the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. Okay, HR 3617, and it's already passed the House, which is very important. Already passed the House. Again, we have a majority Democratic ran government at this time, so this may get passed. Okay, and one of the key things here, it decriminalizes marijuana. Okay. But I'm going to go down to here. It says, makes small business administration loans and services available to entities that are cannabis-related legitimate businesses or services providers. They're going to provide the money, family. They're going to provide the money, family. It also states here, directs the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health to study the impact of state legalization or recreational cannabis on the workplace, and directs the Department of Education to study the impact of state legislation or recreational cannabis on schools and school-age children. Now, my question with this is, why you guys are going to do a study on the state level, but you're going to, which is part of the same legislation, are going to allow the federal government to fund the SBA so people can take out loans to buy weed dispensaries, but you then going to do a study on how it's going to affect the states, where we have a number of states that's already legalized marijuana for the state and for medicinal and recreational use. That's very intriguing, is it not? And the reason why I'm looking at it like that is because it's almost like they're going to make sure or increase the taxes that states are already operating on and get a piece of the pie as well. Watch this language change with some new marijuana legislation. Watch the language change, okay? Because that's exactly what's going to happen. And again, family, I'm looking at this from a business perspective, okay? Not a user perspective, okay? Now, granted, I'm also looking at a medicinal use, because the one thing that you guys need to find out how the federal government regulates here is that they're going to impose, let me highlight this, family. They're going to impose a tax to this, imposing an excise tax on cannabis products produced in or imported to the United States, and an occupational tax on cannabis production facilities and export warehouses. This is what's going on in America. Now, out of all the things I just named, how the government is forking out millions and billions of dollars with where we are $31 trillion in debt to ourselves and partially China. Hashtag no reparations. We've given billions of dollars on top of the yearly budgeted amount of reparations to Native Americans. We've given billions of dollars to the Ukraine. We've given millions of dollars to countries in Africa and countries around the world. We donate millions and billions of dollars of military equipment to all sorts of governments and countries. Hashtag no reparations. No reparations for foundational Black Americans, descendants of American slaves. But here's one of those bills I'm going to tell you right now that they're going to want Black people to get behind. And believe it or not, what I'm about to say is going to be astonishing, because we're going to base this decision or this comment I'm about to make off of our family members. Did you know they did a study, and based off the percentages that majority of Black Americans do not indulge in marijuana, and the community that indulges mostly in marijuana are white? Not by the numbers, because we understand that white America outnumbers the Black population, but they said by percentage. So when you do things by percentage, when populations and demographics don't match, that is going to be your most accurate number. So think about that. Okay? So family, you guys enjoy your Sunday. I know you guys about to watch Sunday Night Football if it's not already on. But with that being said, you guys have a great and wonderful day. I'm out.